Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Steve Riddell. I'm Associate Director of the National Council, and I will be holding back afterward to provide any background and logistic questions you might have. It's my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director and the Dean of the National Council of Juvenile Family Court Judges, a post that he's held for 25 years, Louis McCarty.
Welcome each and every, with General Powell this evening. President Hornsby elected the President of the National Council. David and I, Dave, as you know, is the CEO of Sierra West Bank here in Reno. And that's why we're going to have a big smile on. Without further ado, I don't need to introduce this next person. He's one of those people who, throughout his career, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. General Powell. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be in Reno, and I'm very much looking forward to the event this evening. And I think what's particularly interesting about my being here is as chairman of America's Promise, our new voluntary organization, which flowed from the Philadelphia Summit a few weeks ago. We're working on the same kinds of problems as the National Council is working on. What to do about families, reconstruction of family, what to do about taking care of young people who are in need. And the 9,000 judges who are represented by the council see these issues every day and struggle every day. And the National Council has some wonderful programs trying to deal with these problems. Same kind of problems that America's Promise, my organization, is dealing with. So I'm pleased to be here, lend my support to this organization, and to help them celebrate their 60 years of service to America, to the families of America, and to the young people of America. So I'd be pleased to take your questions.
General, I was wondering, what kind of advice would you give people in Washoe County here in Reno to kind of get that idea of volunteering, like you're trying to get your army of volunteers? What advice would you give for the folks here?
The simple advice is look around your community and you will find a need. Whether it's a school in need of tutors or people who will come in and read to children, or whether it is a hospice or a homeless shelter, all you have to do is open your eyes and look around. If you need some help, then there's a directory of services that I'm sure you can get from the United Way organization. Go find a Boys and Girls Clubs and volunteer to spend some time in a Boys and Girls Club. Volunteer to be a mentor, a big brother or a big sister. It's not a question of what can I do, there's a lot you can do. It's a question of get up and go do it. And that's the advice I give people. Get involved, get involved. The need is there, and this is something not for corporate America, not for government, but for every individual American to get involved in sharing some of your time, your talent, your treasure, and your love of this country and your love of your fellow man and woman, and go out and help somebody. And in my work, it's essentially young people. It's also the work of the National Council, young people, and they are the ones, not all of them obviously, there are many of them, 15 million by my statistics, who are in need, who need someone to come into their life, a caring adult, responsible adult. They need a safe place to learn and to grow. They need marketable skills. They need a healthy start in life. And all of us can do something in providing those resources to those young people in need.
General, it's been a few weeks since the summit in Philadelphia. You've been out on the road, I assume, around the country. Have you seen an impact? Have you seen a difference? There was a lot of attention then, but what about now?
Still a lot of attention. Obviously, you can't have a summit every week. And so as soon as the summit is over, four days later, people are asking, well, you see, nothing happened. But a lot's happened. We continue to garner corporate commitments. We have received several hundred more since the summit ended. We are working with a large number of nonprofit organizations. A number of foundations have come forward and said they wish to provide some financial support to activities. I went to Massachusetts and helped Governor Wells kick off preparations for the Massachusetts Summit. So the whole state of Massachusetts is going to take a piece of the action and have their own summit. So I've been able to subcontract that out to the governor. And he has given his citizens a very clear goal. The state of Massachusetts is going to take care of 50,000 young people. We're going to have 50,000 more youngsters mentored in the state of Massachusetts by the end of the decade. The other day I did a video teleconference with the city of Detroit. Detroit was having its America's Promise Day, and all of the leaders of Detroit got together and committed themselves to this. And so there are summits breaking out all over. I'm spending a lot of time with corporate leaders, and at all the audiences I speak to, I give this message. We see a lot going on. One of the more touching letters I got was from a 63-year-old lady last week wrote me, said that she had seen the summit on television and she was wondering what she could do, which goes back to your question. And as she was thinking about this, she saw an ad for VISTA, Volunteers in Service to America. She called the number, and 3 days later, she was married up with a school. And now 3 days a week, she goes to that school and serves as a teaching assistant and a reading buddy to a number of the children. And she is engaged, she's involved. She was a retired person. She had some medical problems. But suddenly the medical problems don't seem as important or as troubling as they were before. And so she is providing a service, but much more important, the service is being provided to her. She has found, new meaning in her life by sharing her life with people who are in need. And so there's a lot going on, and from time to time we will surface and report to the nation on what we have accomplished. We've got some very major corporate commitments that are about solidified in the range of $100 million, $200 million. But it's not just money I'm interested in. I want more ladies and gentlemen, such as the one I just described, to come forward and volunteer their time and service to be with young people and help young people.
General, is there more to the problem though, or more that needs to be addressed other than volunteering? Are there things that you see that are at the core, the root of the problem as to why we have the need for mentors, big brothers?
Sure, it's the same problem that Judge Hornsby and all of the 9,000 judges represented in this marvelous organization see every day. To some extent, it's the breakdown of the family. To some extent, it's children being born to children. To some extent, it's children who are coming up in an environment where they do not have two or even one caring, responsible, income-producing adult in their lives. It's children who are growing up in communities where that sense of community cohesion is broken down, where you don't have extended family members any longer, where you don't have church or synagogue that gives a spiritual dimension to the community. And by the time a child is 6 or 7 or 8, that child is entering the school system without having put into that child's heart and mind basic fundamental principles of structure, discipline, a healthy start, a belief in yourself, and knowing that there are adults who care for you and who love you and are giving you support. And we have got to get back to that concept of family. We've got to get back to the concept of marriage, people united in marriage, and it is out of that unity that children come. And not every marriage will be perfect. Not every two-parent family is perfect. Some one-parent families I know are much, much better than any two-parent family I've ever seen. Nevertheless, we have got to get back to that model and start to put that into the hearts and minds of our children and let them know that we care for them and that we love them and that we're going to be there for them. And only when we do that and start to have youngsters believing that will I consider my work done, and we can cut the size of the organization that I'm here with. This is an organization that does not wish to grow in size. We wish we didn't need juvenile judges or family court judges, but we do. And they are seeing the consequences of our failure of dealing with these problems at the beginning.
So is it a sign of the times then that, according to First Lady, it takes a village now?
It takes all of us. It's a wonderful title for her book, and I support everything she has done in this regard. Her personal commitment to this. But it goes beyond just, it takes a village. It takes a village, it takes a government, it takes everybody to bring together all the resources that a child needs to be successful. And the dangers are greater now than they were ever before. The dangers of drugs, the dangers of violence, the dangers of gangs, and the requirement for a different kind of education, a more complex, sophisticated education that you need to be successful in today's economic world. It's different than it was when I was coming along. And unless a child enters the education system with a structure that puts that child in the environment to learn a lot more than you had to learn when I was coming along, a much more technical kind of education, the child is not going to be successful. So yes, it takes a village, but it takes much more than even just a village.
General?
Yes.
What do you say to someone that says, I'd love to help, but I don't have the time?
It is true that many people are so consumed with 2 jobs and taking care of their own children that they will come forward and say that. But first of all, if they are holding down 2 jobs and still able to take care of their own children, that's good. I mean, they are contributing. That's exactly what we want them to be doing, bringing up their own children. But I think they can always find an hour. They can always find an hour or they can get their church or synagogue or other place of worship involved. I'm running across more and more churches where on Sunday, as part of the church experience or the synagogue experience at other times of the week, they are partnering with a school so that parishioners will spend a little bit of time in the school during the course of the week. It's hard when you're working 60 hours a week and both parents are working. But I would hope even there they would try to find an hour or two to help, or perhaps their best contribution is to write a check a little bit more next year for the charities they support than they did this year.
General, I know people probably ask you all the time about the presidential rumors, and I don't know if there's anything you can say about that.
Rumors?
That's
Rumors?
not why you're here, and I don't want to detract from that at all, but anything you can tell us at all? Are you considering this for the year 2000?
I'm very happy in private life. Very, very happy in private life. I intend to remain there.
Are you ruling out
I'm
any
very, very happy.
possibility?
I'm very, very happy in private life and
General?
intend to remain there. Yeah.
Your speech tonight is
That's right.
called Managing Crisis and Change. Is that crisis related to this family crisis that you're talking about now, or will you be addressing different changes?
I'll talk about broader issues. I'll talk about America's Promise, the program that I'm working on, but I will expand out of that and talk about the changes in the world that I've witnessed over the last 10 years that have been so historic and really are creating a new world environment. And then I think I will link it all back again to our need to make sure that we're bringing up an educated generation of youngsters to deal with these historic changes. So then again, I don't know what I'll talk about. Who knows?
General, how would you get teens involved in,
Students?
in the government of their community?
I'm doing more and more work with colleges and high schools, and one of the things we have on our agenda is to how to get college students committed in service so that college students can go into elementary schools and help with reading programs and tutoring programs. A young 8 or 9-year-old kid who's having trouble can perhaps make a better connection to an 18-year-old youngster than to an older person. So we are working with various school organizations to try to get high school seniors and even juniors and college students involved in these programs as well. Some states, such as the state of Maryland, make it a mandatory requirement for high school students before they can graduate to have performed 75 hours of community service, and that community service might be working in an elementary school. I think it's a great idea. It's quite controversial should you order students to do something like that. And I don't think it should be all that controversial. I was ordered to do algebra, and I didn't like that either. And I think giving service back to your community is a good part of the educational experience. It's something you ought to do. It's something that you ought to learn early in your life as one of the virtues that a good citizen should place in their heart and soul, giving back. So yes, we are working with students, and we'll be doing more work with students to get them married up with younger students.
As far as juvenile crime goes in the courts, going to the back end, we've talked a lot about the ways to try to prevent it from happening, but it does happen. Should the courts and the laws be tougher? There has been some talk recently about lowering the age at which juveniles can be tried as adults for crimes, even perhaps opening them up to the death penalty. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm certainly no expert, and there are many experts in the room with me. But I think all of these things have to be done in the cold light of analysis and reason, and not in the hot light of emotionalism. We have to think very, very carefully before we start doing such things as lowering death sentences for young people. So I would just approach this all very, very carefully, and I would listen carefully to organizations such as the National Council, because these 9,000 men and women spend all of their lives dealing with these young people, and I would be guided very strongly by what they had to say about it. I visited prisons, and I have seen young men, especially black young men, doing 10, 15 years. And they end up at jail at age 18, and they'll come out at something like 32, 33, for the most part unemployable. They've left children behind who are fatherless. And we've got to make sure that youthful errors and youthful mistakes don't necessarily cause us to put somebody away for life when there is an opportunity to save that person. I'm not a bleeding heart on this. If somebody's bad, and if somebody insists on living a life of crime, they belong in jail. But at the same time, we are talking about young people. We're talking about impressionable young people. We're talking about young people who perhaps haven't been served by their community before they got in trouble. And I think that's why we need very, very effective and well-trained judges to handle these matters for us, and that's why this council is so important with all of the educational programs that are run here at this fine university, 142 programs in the course of the last year. Research Institute in Pittsburgh and the other things that the council does and the college does. All of that is important in giving us a base of knowledge to answer questions such as you just raised. I'll take one more and then I better go.
Any
Anyone else?
comments, sir, on your former playmates, our former playmates, and the problems they're going through?
If you're talking, General, about the Armed Forces of the United States, they're as great as ever. We're having some challenges, sexual harassment, and some of the more well-reported upon scandals. But I have every confidence in the people you and I train together to handle those and work their way through. The story that isn't told often enough is what a great military force it is we do have. And even with the little problems that come along from time to time, you have to remember there are hundreds of thousands of wonderful young men and women around the world serving the nation proudly and doing a great job for the American people. Thank you all very much.
If you need any background or have any questions regarding logistics, I'd be happy to entertain those.